Poor mother takes her daughter to buy a toy with $10 on Christmas Eve. But what the billionaire does next moves everyone. The snow was falling lightly on the streets of Boston. It was Christmas Eve, 5 in the afternoon, and Sarah held Hannah's hand tightly as they walked along the icy sidewalk. The 5-year-old girl jumped in puddles of melted snow, her blonde curls escaping from her red beanie. Sarah smiled, but it was a tired smile. She had worked all day. Double shifts at the cafe. Her feet ached, her back ached. But it was Christmas Eve, and she had promised Hannah they would buy a present, just one, a small one. Something that would fit within the $10 left over after paying the overdue rent. They entered the toy store on the main street. The bell jingled. The store was crowded. Children running around. Parents carrying huge bags. Christmas music playing. The smell of cinnamon in the air. Hannah stopped right at the entrance, her blue eyes wide. "Wow," she whispered, amazed. Toys everywhere. Giant stuffed animals. Dolls in colorful boxes. Shiny cars. Everything lit up. New. Perfect. "Let's take a look," Sarah said gently. "But remember what we talked about, okay? We have a small budget." "Okay, Mommy." Hannah let go of her hand and ran down the aisle. Sarah followed, trying not to lose sight of her. The little girl stopped at every shelf, touching everything with her little fingers. Sarah followed behind, looking at the prices. $30, $45, $60, everything was too expensive. "How about this little bear?" Sarah picked up a small stuffed animal. "He's cute. $8. Hannah barely glanced at it. "I don't want a teddy bear, Mummy." And then she stopped, so suddenly that Sarah almost tripped. Hannah was staring straight ahead, completely still, her mouth slightly open, her eyes shining. Sarah followed her gaze. It was a doll, beautiful, the size of a real baby. Curly blonde hair, blue eyes that opened and closed. A pink dress with white lace. Patterned leather shoes. It came in a clear box decorated with golden flowers. It was the most beautiful doll in the store. And it was on the highest shelf, all alone. "Mommy!" Hannah shouted, jumping and pointing. "I want that one!" Sarah felt her heart sink. She looked at the price tag, $50. "Honey, that one is very expensive." "Mommy, I want that one," Hannah insisted. "Louder, please. She's beautiful. Look at her hair. It looks like mine." It was true. The doll looked like a miniature version of Hannah. The same golden curls, the same huge blue eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, I know you like it, but all my friends have one." Hannah cut her off, turning to her with pleading eyes. "Sophie has one, Emma has two, and Mia got one just like this for her birthday." Sarah knelt to her level, holding her shoulders. "Hannah, listen. Honey, we only have $10. Hannah's smile vanished. "10? "Yes, $10. "This doll costs $50. Hannah looked at the doll, then at her mother. Her eyes started to well up with tears. But I want it so much." Her voice came out low, trembling. "She's so pretty, and she looks like me." Sarah felt her heart break into pieces. She wished she could buy that doll. She wished she could give her daughter everything, everything she deserved. But she couldn't. "I know, my love," she said, her voice soft. "I know you want it, but we can't. We have to choose something that fits our budget, okay?" A tear rolled down Hannah's face. "But it's not fair." "I know." Sarah wiped the tear from her cheek. "Come on, let's find something special with our $10, okay? Let's look together." Hannah sniffled. She nodded slowly, but Sarah saw the sadness. She saw how she glanced at the doll one last time, with a longing that was painful to watch. On the other side of the store, someone had seen everything. Matthew was standing near the games section, pretending to look at a chess set. But he was watching the mother and the little girl. He had noticed them as soon as they came in. The young woman, too thin with simple but clean clothes. Her coat was too thin for the winter. Her boots were worn. And the girl, small, blonde, with enormous eyes. He had heard everything. The request, the tears. "We only have $10. That sentence echoed in his head, and something inside him stirred. It had been years since he had felt anything. His heart was a cold stone, But when he saw that little girl crying for a doll, something broke. He waited for them to move away. Then he walked to the shelf. He took the box. He went to the checkout. "Good choice," said the cashier. "For your daughter?" "No," Matthew said, his voice hoarse. "But it's for a special girl." He paid in cash, held the box carefully, and went to find them. He found them in the modeling clay aisle. Hannah was holding a cheap plastic pony, trying to look interested. Matthew took a deep breath and approached. "Excuse me." They both turned. Sarah stood up quickly, protectively. She placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Sorry to bother you," he said gently, keeping his distance. I overheard you talking about the doll, the blonde one, in the pink dress." Sarah frowned. "Yes." Matthew held out the box. "I bought it for her." Silence. "What?" "The doll. I bought it. For your daughter. If you'll let me give it to her." Hannah's eyes were wide. She stared at the box as if it were pure gold. No." Sarah shook her head. "No, we can't accept this. It's too expensive." "I know I don't have to," Matthew said softly. "But I want to. It's Christmas, and she wanted it so much. Please." "We don't accept charity." "It's not charity. It's a gift. A Christmas gift. For a beautiful girl who deserves something special." "The doll, Mommy," Hannah whispered, pulling on her sleeve. "It's the doll." Sarah looked at her daughter. She saw the pleading eyes, the hope in them. "Please," Matthew insisted, "it's just a gift. No strings attached. Just joy on a Christmas night." Sarah took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "Okay." Matthew smiled. He knelt to Hannah's level. He held out the box. "For you." Hannah took it, slowly, reverently. When she held the box in her arms, her eyes filled with tears. "It's her," she whispered. "It's my doll." And then, without warning, she carefully placed the box on the floor and hugged Matthew, tightly. She threw her little arms around his neck. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Matthew froze. He hadn't expected that, and then he felt it, the warmth of that hug. Its purity, the genuine gratitude of a child. He closed his eyes and hugged her back. Slowly, carefully. "You're welcome, little one," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. When Hannah pulled away, she was beaming. She picked up the box and hugged it to her chest. Matthew stood up. He looked at Sarah. She was crying. "Thank you," she whispered. "You didn't have to, but thank you." And then, without thinking, the words came out, "If you don't have plans, would you like to spend Christmas with me tonight?" Sarah was stunned. "What? Christmas? I'm going to be alone, and I imagine you two are as well, so I thought maybe we could spend it together, no strings attached. Just company. Good food, a quiet evening." "Mommy, can we?" Hannah asked, clutching the doll. Sarah looked at the man in front of her, a stranger, but kind. He had tears in his eyes when he hugged Hannah. There was a loneliness in him. She recognized it. It was the same loneliness she carried. "I understand if you say no," Matthew said. "I'm a stranger. But I swear I have no bad intentions. I don't want to spend tonight alone." Sarah bit her lip. Every rational fiber screamed to say no. But something about him seemed safe, broken, lonely, human. And she was so tired of spending Christmas alone. "Okay," she said finally. "We'll come." Matthew smiled. A huge, genuine smile, the first in years. "Really?" "Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll make a special dinner and it'll be good." And so on Christmas Eve, in a toy store, 3 lonely souls met. An exhausted mother who just wanted to give her daughter something special, a little girl who got the doll of her dreams, and a lonely man who didn't know he was looking for a family. Something new was beginning. And none of them had any idea how this night would change everything. Matthew's car was quiet and comfortable, A black sedan, clean, smelling of leather and pine. Hannah was in the back seat, hugging the doll's box, looking out the window with shining eyes. Sarah was in the front seat, her hands in her lap, trying not to look nervous. This was crazy. Getting into a stranger's car, going to his house, on Christmas Eve. But when she looked in the rearview mirror and saw Hannah smiling like that, she knew she had made the right choice. Matthew drove in silence. Occasionally, he would glance in the mirror, seeing the little girl in the back. Every time he saw her smile, something inside him warmed. "Do you live far?" he asked, breaking the silence. "On the other side of the city," Sarah said, "near the harbor, about 20 minutes from here. We can stop by there quickly, so you can grab whatever you need." "Thank you." The silence returned, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a silence filled with expectation, with something new beginning. They drove to Sarah's place, an old building with exposed bricks and rusty fire escapes. Matthew waited in the car while they went up. 15 minutes later, they returned. Sarah with a simple bag, Hannah with the doll now out of its box, hugged against her chest. "Ready to go?" Matthew asked, smiling. "Ready," Hannah replied, excited. So they went. Matthew drove through the city. They left the harbor area, drove through the illuminated downtown, and entered a different neighborhood. Bigger houses, wider streets, tall trees. Sarah noticed the change. She looked out the window, seeing the mansions, the huge yards, the iron gates, the imported cars in the driveways. "You live here?" she asked quietly. "I do." She said nothing, but she felt her stomach tighten. What kind of person was Matthew? Rich, clearly, but alone, so alone that he invited two strangers to spend Christmas with him. Matthew turned onto a private road and then stopped in front of a tall gate. He pressed a button on a remote. The gate slowly opened, and there it was. The mansion. Hannah let out a muffled gasp. Wow, it was enormous. 3 stories, colonial style, painted white with dark wood trim, huge windows, all lit up, columns at the entrance, a massive front lawn covered in snow, and lights, Christmas lights everywhere. On the trees, in the windows, on the roof like a fairy tale castle. "You live here?" Hannah asked, in disbelief. Matthew smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I do, alone." He parked in front of the house. They got out of the car. The air was frigid. The snow continued to fall, light, like white confetti. Hannah ran to the front steps, looking up, her mouth open. "It's the prettiest house I've ever seen." Sarah stood there, staring. It was truly beautiful. But there was something about it, something cold. Despite all the lights, it seemed empty. "Let's go inside," Matthew said, climbing the steps. "It's too cold out here." He opened the door, and they entered. The foyer was huge, marble floors, a crystal chandelier hanging from the high ceiling, a curved staircase leading to the second floor, paintings on the walls. Everything impeccable, everything perfect, and everything silent. Too silent. "Oh my," Sarah whispered. Hannah had stopped in the middle of the hall, spinning slowly, taking it all in. "It's like a castle." Matthew closed the door behind them. He took off his coat. "Let me take your coats, and please, make yourselves comfortable. The house is big, but feel at home." Sarah took off her coat. Matthew took it and hung it on an elegant wooden coat rack. "The living room is this way," he said, pointing to the left, "and the kitchen is at the back. There's the dining room, the library. But let's take it slow. I don't want you to get lost." He smiled, trying to seem casual, but Sarah saw it. She saw the nervousness, the anxiety. He wasn't used to having people here. "Hannah, want to see the Christmas tree?" Matthew asked. "Yes," she shouted, jumping. "Come on." He led them to the living room. It was spacious, leather sofas, a lit fireplace, crackling softly, shelves full of books, and in the corner, near the huge window, the tree. Hannah stopped. She looked up, and further up. The tree touched the ceiling. It was at least 12 feet tall, full, green, perfect, covered in gold and silver lights, colorful glass ornaments, stars, shiny baubles, a huge star on top. It was the most beautiful tree Hannah had ever seen. "It's giant," she whispered, amazed. She ran to it, touched the branches, looked at the ornaments up close. Then she bent down and looked under the tree. Empty, completely empty. Not a single present, not one box, not one bow. Hannah frowned. She turned to Matthew. "There are no presents." Matthew froze. His smile faded. He looked at the tree, then at the little girl, then at the floor. "No," he said, his voice low. "There aren't." "Why?" He hesitated. Sarah saw the pain in his eyes, the loneliness, the sadness he was trying to hide. Matthew knelt to Hannah's level. He looked at her with those tired eyes. "Because I decorate it every year, but I've never had anyone to put presents out for." Silence fell in the room, only the sound of the fire crackling in the hearth. Hannah looked at him, then at the tree, then back at him. "You don't have a family?" "Not anymore. Not even friends?" "Not many." Hannah thought for a moment. Then she picked up the doll she had left on the sofa. "Then we can be your family today," she said seriously. "And tomorrow too, if you want." Matthew felt a lump in his throat. His eyes filled with tears. He blinked quickly, trying to hold them back. "I'd love that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Hannah smiled, then she hugged him again, quickly, and ran off to explore the room. Sarah approached. She placed a hand on Matthew's shoulder. He stood up, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'm sorry," he said. I didn't expect this to be so." "You don't have to apologize," Sarah said gently. "We understand." He nodded, took a deep breath, and smiled. "Shall we go to the kitchen? I need to start preparing dinner." They followed him to the back of the house. The kitchen was enormous. Granite countertops, dark wood cabinets, stainless steel appliances. An island in the center with high stools, large windows overlooking the backyard. It was a kitchen out of a magazine, but, like the rest of the house, it looked barely used. "Do you eat turkey?" Matthew asked, opening the refrigerator. "We do," said Hannah, climbing onto a stool. "Great. I prepped a turkey this morning. It just needs to be roasted. And I have potatoes, vegetables, gravy." He started taking things out of the fridge. Sarah watched. He knew what he was doing. Confident hands, precise movements. "You cook?" she asked. "I learned," he said. "When you live alone, you either learn or you starve." Sarah smiled. "Can I help?" "You can, but I'll do the cooking. You're my guests. I'm not going to stand by and watch you work." Matthew looked at her and smiled, a real smile. "All right, can you peel the potatoes?" They worked side by side. Sarah peeled potatoes. Matthew prepared the turkey, seasoning it with herbs. Hannah stayed at the island playing with her doll, humming softly. It was strange. Strange, but good. As if they had been doing this for years. As if it were natural. "Do you have a name for her?" Matthew asked Hannah, pointing to the doll. Hannah thought. "Rosie," she said, decisively. "Because her dress is pink." "Rosie is a beautiful name." "She is beautiful." "Yes, she is." The turkey went into the oven. The potatoes went on to boil. Matthew prepared vegetables. Sarah made a salad. And slowly, the kitchen filled with delicious smells. The smell of roasting turkey, of rosemary, of garlic, of Christmas. While they waited, Matthew showed them the dining room. It was formal. A long dark wood table, upholstered chairs, a crystal chandelier, a sideboard with silverware. All elegant, all perfect. And at the head of the table, a single place setting. One plate, one glass, one napkin, one set of cutlery. Sarah stopped. She looked. She felt her heart ache. Matthew saw her looking. He looked embarrassed. I always set just one," he said quietly, "because it's always just me." He went to the cabinet, took out more plates, more glasses, more cutlery. He placed them on the table. one on each side of his. "But tonight," he said, arranging everything carefully. "Tonight, finally, I won't be eating alone." Sarah had tears in her eyes. She had never thought about it, never imagined it. Someone with so much money, with such a big, beautiful house, eating alone. Every day, every night, every Christmas. "Matthew," she said softly. He looked at her. "Thank you for inviting us, for sharing this night with us." He smiled, a sad but grateful smile. "No, thank you, for accepting, for being here." Dinner was ready an hour later. Matthew brought everything to the table. The golden, juicy turkey, creamy potatoes, colorful vegetables, cranberry sauce, warm homemade bread. It was a perfect Christmas feast. They sat down, Matthew at the head, Sarah on one side, Hannah on the other. For the first time in years, the table wasn't empty. "May I?" Matthew asked, picking up the carving knife. "Please do," said Sarah. He carved, served each of them, the plates filled with food. The aroma was incredible. "Enjoy your meal," said Matthew. "Enjoy your meal," Hannah repeated excitedly. They ate, and it was delicious. Every bite, every flavor. During dinner, they talked. Sarah told him about her life, about being a waitress in a small cafe downtown, about working double shifts most days, about living in a small apartment with Hannah. "And her father?" Matthew asked gently. Then he hesitated. "Sorry, it's none of my business." "It's okay," Sarah said. He left when I got pregnant, said he wasn't ready. He never came back." Matthew nodded, understanding. "That must be hard, on your own." "It is," she admitted, "but we manage, and I have her. That's all that matters." She looked at Hannah, who was happily eating potatoes with her hands. "She's your priority," Matthew said. "Always has been, always will be." He watched her. He saw the determination, the love, the strength. This woman had been through a lot, and she kept fighting, kept smiling, kept being an incredible mother. "You're a wonderful mother," he said seriously. Sarah blushed. "Thank you, I try." "No, you are. Hannah is lucky to have you." Sarah smiled, a genuine smile. It was rare for someone to acknowledge that, to recognize the effort, the sacrifice. "And you, Matthew?" she asked. "How did you end up here, alone in this huge house?" Matthew fell silent. He looked at his plate, then sighed. "I lost my family 5 years ago," he said quietly. "My wife and my daughter, a car accident." Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. "Matthew, I'm so sorry." He nodded. "Since then, I just exist. I work. I come home. I sleep. Repeat. There's nothing else. And that's why you decorate for Christmas?" Sarah asked gently. "Even when you're alone?" "Yes, my daughter loved Christmas. She would be sad if I stopped decorating. So I decorate, every year. But it never feels right. It never feels complete." Hannah had stopped eating. She was listening, seriously. "What was your daughter's name?" she asked. "Lily," Matthew said, smiling through his tears. "She was 8 years old, brown hair, green eyes, laughed all the time." "Would she have liked me?" Hannah asked. Matthew looked at her and smiled. "She would have loved you." Hannah smiled back. Dinner continued, but something had changed. They were no longer strangers. They were 3 lonely people who had found each other. 3 people carrying pain, loneliness, but finding, for one night, comfort. After dinner, they went back to the living room. Matthew added more wood to the fire. Hannah sat on the rug, playing with Rosie, creating elaborate stories. Sarah and Matthew sat on the sofa, in silence, just watching Hannah play, listening to her laugh. "It's been so long since I've heard laughter in this house," Matthew said quietly. "So long since I've felt warmth." Sarah looked at him. "You don't have to be alone forever. I know, but it's easier, safer. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't heal either." He looked at her and saw understanding in her eyes. She got it. She carried pain too. She also knew loneliness. "You've made my Christmas happy," Matthew confessed, his voice thick. "For the first time in 5 years, I feel something other than emptiness." Sarah took his hand, squeezed it. "You made ours special too. For the first time in a long time, Hannah had a real Christmas, with a feast, with joy, with magic." He squeezed her hand back, and they stayed like that, sitting holding hands, watching Hannah play, watching the fire dance in the hearth, feeling, for the first time in years, that maybe they weren't so alone after all. The evening went on. Hannah started to yawn, fighting sleep, wanting to enjoy every second. "I think someone's sleepy," Sarah said, smiling. "I'm not," Hannah protested, rubbing her eyes. Matthew stood up. "I have plenty of rooms. You can stay. Spend the night. No need to drive back in this cold." Sarah hesitated. "Matthew, we've already imposed so much. Please," he insisted. It would be nice. Not to spend this night alone. Just this once." Sarah looked at Hannah, then back at him and nodded. "Okay, we'll stay." Matthew smiled. A huge smile. Relieved, grateful. He took them to the second floor, showed them a huge room, a king-sized bed, an ensuite bathroom, everything clean, tidy, cozy. "You can sleep here," he said. "There are towels in the closet. And if you need anything, my room is at the end of the hall." "Thank you," Sarah said, "for everything. You're welcome." He turned to leave, then stopped, looked back. "Sarah." "Yes." "Merry Christmas," she smiled. "Merry Christmas, Matthew." He left, closed the door, and for the first time in 5 years, Matthew went to sleep smiling. In the living room, the lights on the tree continued to twinkle. The fireplace still crackled softly. The mansion, which had always been cold and empty, was finally warm, not because of the lights or the fire, but because of the people inside it. A mother and daughter who needed magic, and a lonely man who needed a family. And on that Christmas night, they found exactly that in each other. 4 days after Christmas, Sarah was in the middle of her afternoon shift. The cafe was moderately busy, people coming and going, orders for cappuccinos, espressos, sandwiches, the familiar noise of the coffee machine, the smell of roasted beans in the air. She was behind the counter, taking a customer's order, when the bell on the door jingled. She looked up automatically, as she always did, and froze. Matthew. He was standing at the entrance, hands in the pockets of his grey coat, looking around. When his eyes met hers, he smiled. Sarah stood still, her pen hovering over the order pad. What was he doing here? "Excuse me," the customer in front of her said impatiently. "Oh, sorry." Sarah turned her attention back to the order. "You said a large cappuccino." "Yes, with almond milk." "Right." Sarah finished writing, passed the order to the barista, and looked toward the door again. Matthew was walking to the counter, slowly, almost hesitantly. Sarah wiped her hands on her apron. Her heart was beating faster. She didn't know why. It had only been 4 days, 4 days since that magical Christmas night. She had thought about him. Of course she had. But she hadn't expected to see him again so soon, or to see him again at all. "Hi," Matthew said when he reached the counter. "Hi," Sarah replied, trying to sound casual. "What are you doing here?" He shrugged, smiling a little sheepishly. "I wanted to see you." Sarah blinked. "Really? Really, I know it's a bit strange, showing up like this. But after that night, He hesitated. "I couldn't stop thinking about you two, and I thought it would be nice to come here. See where you work, and see Hannah, if she's here." Sarah felt something warm in her chest. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was nice. It was nice to be remembered, to be sought out. "She's over there." Sarah pointed to the little corner near the window. Matthew turned and saw her. Hannah was sitting at a small table, her legs dangling because they couldn't reach the floor. She had paper and colored pencils spread out on the table. She was drawing intently, her tongue sticking out. Matthew smiled, that smile that lit up his whole face. "Is she drawing?" "She always is," Sarah said proudly. "When she's not in school, she comes to work with me." Sits there in her corner, draws and plays, does her homework. It's safer than leaving her home alone. Can I go talk to her? Of course. She'll be thrilled to see you. Matthew nodded, then he hesitated again. And you? When does your shift end? In an hour. Can I wait? Maybe we could, I don't know, have coffee together after. The three of us. Sarah smiled. So I work in a cafe, Matthew. We can have coffee now. He laughed. A genuine, light sound. True. All right. Then I'll have a... What do you recommend? Cappuccino. It's the best one here. A cappuccino it is, then. Sarah wrote it down, passed on the order, and watched Matthew walk over to Hannah's table. Hannah didn't see him approach. She was too focused, drawing with a yellow pencil, her tongue still sticking out. Hiya, Hannah, Matthew said, stopping beside her table. Hannah looked up. Her eyes widened. Matthew, she yelled, jumping out of her chair. She ran and hugged him around the waist. Matthew laughed, bending down to return the hug. Hi, little one. How are you? Good. What are you doing here? I came to see you and your mum. I missed you, Hannah beamed. Me too, Rosie too. She asked about you yesterday. She did? She did. She wanted to know if you were going to visit us again. Matthew knelt all the way down, getting to her level. I wanted to, that's why I came. I hope that's okay. Of course it's okay. Hannah took his hand and pulled him. Come on, come see what I'm drawing. He let himself be pulled, sat in the chair next to her. Hannah went back to her seat, grabbing the papers. Look, she said, showing him a drawing. This is you. Matthew took the paper. It was a simple drawing, like any 5-year-old would make. But it was clearly a person. Tall, dark hair scribbled on top of his head, a huge smile, and next to him, 2 smaller figures, one with long hair, another with curly yellow hair. It's the 3 of us, Hannah explained. At your house, on Christmas. Look, here's the big tree. She pointed to a giant green triangle in the corner. And then here's Rosie. She pointed to a pink smudge. Matthew felt a lump in his throat. He looked at the drawing, at the 3 figures together, smiling. It's beautiful, Hannah, he said, his voice hoarse. You draw very well. You think so? I do. You're an artist. Hannah smiled proudly. She grabbed another paper. I made this one yesterday. It's Rosie in a flower garden. See, these are roses, because her name is Rosie. Matthew looked, colourful splotches everywhere, red, yellow, pink, purple, and in the centre, a figure in a pink dress. It's very pretty. The colours are beautiful. Mommy says I use too many colours, Hannah admitted. But I like colours. They make everything happier. Your mum is right. Colours do make everything happier. Hannah continued to show him drawings, one after another. Matthew looked at each one attentively, praised them, asked questions, and Hannah answered excitedly, explaining every detail. From the counter, Sarah watched. She saw Matthew sitting in the tiny chair, his large frame too big for it, but not caring. She saw him listening to Hannah with his full attention, saw him smiling, laughing, genuinely interested in a 5-year-old's scribbles. Something inside her warmed. Not every man would do that. Not every man would take the time to listen to a child talk about drawings. Especially a child that wasn't his, but Matthew did, and he seemed happy, truly happy. Matthew's cappuccino was ready. Sarah picked it up, placed it on a saucer, added a cookie on the side, and brought it to the table. Cappuccino, she said, placing it in front of him. Thank you. Matthew looked up, smiling. Hannah was showing me her drawings. She's incredible. I know, Sarah said proudly. She ran a hand through her daughter's hair. She's been drawing since she could hold a pencil. I'm going to be an artist when I grow up, Hannah declared seriously. You will be, Matthew agreed. No doubt about it. Sarah went back to the counter. The cafe was quieter now, only a few customers. She was able to slow down, wipe some tables, and every now and then glance at the corner table. Matthew was still there, still talking with Hannah. Now she had given him paper and a pencil. She was teaching him how to draw a flower. No, not like that, she'd say, taking his hand. The stem has to be straighter, and the petals have to be round. See? Matthew would try again. Hannah would look critically. Better, but the petals are crooked. Sorry, I'm not very good at this. It's okay. You'll learn. I'll teach you. Sarah smiled, wiping a table. Seeing the two of them together was nice, natural, as if it had always been this way. Half an hour later, Sarah's shift was over. She took off her apron, grabbed her bag, and went to the table. Ready to go? She asked Hannah. All ready? Hannah made a sad face. But I was teaching Matthew how to draw. You can teach him another day. Or, Matthew said hesitantly, or you could have dinner with me tonight, if you don't have plans. Sarah looked at him. He looked back, hopeful, a little nervous. Matthew, nothing fancy, he continued quickly. It could be a pizza place or anywhere. I wanted to spend more time with you, if you'll let me. Sarah looked at Hannah. She was bouncing in her chair, excited. Pizza, pizza, can we, Mummy? Sarah sighed, but she was smiling. All right, pizza it is. Matthew smiled, huge, relieved. Great. I know a good place nearby. We can walk. They left the cafe together, Hannah in the middle, holding Sarah's hand with one hand and Matthew's with the other, jumping between them as they walked down the cold sidewalk. 1, 2, 3, jump, she would yell, and they would lift her by her arms, swinging her in the air. Hannah would laugh, loud and happy. Sarah looked at Matthew over Hannah's head. He looked back, and they smiled, a smile of understanding, of gratitude. This was good. This was right. A friendship was blooming, delicate, new, but strong, and the three of them felt it. They felt that something special was beginning, something that could change everything. They arrived at the pizzeria. Small, cozy, smelling of cheese and fresh dough, they sat at a table by the window, ordered a large pepperoni pizza, a soda for Hannah, a beer for Matthew and Sarah, and they talked about everything, about nothing. Matthew told them about his job, an entrepreneur. He had a tech company. Sarah told him more about her life, the challenges, the joys. Hannah told stories from school, about her friends, about her nice teacher. The hours passed. The pizza was gone, but they stayed seated, talking, laughing. And when they finally said goodbye in front of Sarah's building late that night, they all knew. They knew this wouldn't be the last time. It wouldn't be just one night. It wouldn't be just a casual meeting. This was the beginning of something bigger, a friendship, a connection, a family maybe. Only time would tell. But that night, all three of them went to sleep, happy, feeling like they had found something rare, someone who cared, someone who stayed, someone who chose to be there, and that in itself was magical. It was Saturday morning. The sun shone weakly through the grey clouds, but at least it wasn't snowing. Sarah was washing the breakfast dishes when the phone rang. She dried her hands and answered, "Hello, Sarah, it's Matthew." She smiled automatically. "Hi, Matthew, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Look, I know this is last minute, but do you have plans today?" Sarah looked out the window of her small apartment. Hannah was sitting on the couch, watching cartoons, hugging Rosie. "No, why?" "I thought we could go out, the three of us. A walk in the park, maybe. It's cold, but the sun is out. And I wanted to see you again." Sarah felt that warmth in her chest again. It had only been 2 days since the pizza, but Matthew was already calling, already reaching out, and that meant something. "I think that would be great," she said. "Hannah will love it." "Perfect. Can I pick you up in half an hour?" "You can. We'll be ready." She hung up and smiled to herself. Hannah noticed. "Who was that, Mommy?" "It was Matthew." "He's coming to get us. We're going for a walk in the park," Hannah screamed, jumping off the sofa. "Really? Matthew's coming here?" "He is, so go get ready, warm clothes, because it's cold." Hannah darted to her room. Sarah could hear her rummaging through drawers, excited, talking to herself about what to wear. Sarah went to her own room, looked in the mirror, fixed her hair, put on some light lipstick, nothing over the top, just presentable. It wasn't a date. It was just a walk, with Hannah there, among friends, but still, she wanted to look nice. 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Hannah ran to the door. I'll get it, I'll get it. Sarah let her. She heard the door open, and Hannah's excited voice. Matthew, hi little one, ready for a walk? So ready. Look, I brought Rosie. She wants to come too. Great, the more the merrier. Sarah grabbed her bag and came out of the room. Matthew was standing at the door, bent down, looking at the doll in Hannah's arms. She looks beautiful today, he said, touching the doll's dress. I combed her hair, Hannah said proudly. Matthew looked up and saw Sarah. He smiled. Hi. Hi, she replied, feeling her cheeks warm. Ready to go? Ready. They went downstairs. The car was out front. They got in, Hannah in the back, Sarah in the front, and they drove off. The park was 15 minutes away. A large park with tall trees, walking trails, a playground, a frozen lake. Even with the cold, there were families, kids running around, dogs barking, people walking. They parked, got out. The air was cold but clean. It smelled of pine and cold earth. Where to first? Matthew asked. Playground, Hannah shouted, pointing. So playground it is. They walked through the park. Hannah ran ahead, Rosie in her arms, stopping to look at every tree, every bird, every interesting thing. Sarah and Matthew walked behind, side by side, in silence at first, but it was a comfortable silence. Thank you for this, Sarah said finally, for getting us out of the house. Hannah gets bored in the small apartment. No need to thank me. I wanted to come. I wanted to see you. You've been seeing us a lot, she said, looking at him. The cafe, the pizza, now this. Aren't you tired of us yet? Matthew stopped walking. He looked at her seriously. Never, he said firmly. I could spend every day with you and not get tired. Sarah fell quiet. She didn't know what to say. The way he spoke, it was intense, true, loaded with something she couldn't name. Matthew, I know it's strange, he continued. We barely know each other. It's been less than 2 weeks. But He hesitated. You changed something in me. Since that day in the store, since that Christmas night, I don't feel empty anymore, alone, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Sarah's heart pounded. It wasn't fear, it was something different, something good. You're not going to lose us, she said softly. We're here, and we like being with you too. Matthew smiled, relieved, grateful. They kept walking. They reached the playground. Hannah took off, climbed the slide, then the swings, then the seesaw. Rosie sat on a bench, keeping watch, according to Hannah. Matthew and Sarah sat on a nearby bench, watching. Hannah laughed, playing with other children, fearless, without shyness. She's so happy, Matthew said quietly. She is. She's always been like that. Even when things were hard, she would smile. Matthew looked at Sarah. Were things very hard? Sarah was quiet, staring ahead, watching Hannah on the slide. They were, she admitted. They still are sometimes. But we manage. You said her father left. Sarah took a deep breath. She knew this conversation would come eventually, but she didn't expect it so soon. He did, she said, her voice firm. Her father abandoned me when he found out I was pregnant. Matthew was quiet, listening. We had been dating for 6 months, Sarah continued. I was 19. He was 22. I thought it was serious. I thought we had a future, so when I found out I was pregnant, I was happy. Scared but happy. She paused, swallowed hard. I told him, and he freaked out, said it was too soon, that he wasn't ready, that he had plans, a career, things he wanted to do before being a father. And you? Matthew asked gently. You had plans too. I did, Sarah admitted. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be a teacher. But when I found out about her, she looked at Hannah, My plans changed. She became the priority. Matthew nodded, understanding. He tried to convince me not to have her, Sarah said, her voice lower now. Said we were too young, that we didn't have money, that it would ruin our lives, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't give up on her. So I said I was going to have the baby, with or without him. And he chose without. He chose without, she confirmed bitterly. He left the next day, moved to another city, blocked my number, never came back, never asked about his daughter, never sent money, nothing, as if we didn't exist. Silence fell, just the sound of children playing, the wind in the trees. Sarah, Matthew began. I'm not telling you this for pity, she cut him off, turning to him. I'm telling you because it's the truth, because it's my story, our story. And if you're going to be in our lives, you need to know that it's just the two of us, always has been, always will be. There's no family, no support system. Just me and her. Matthew looked at her. He saw the strength there, the determination, the courage of a woman who was abandoned, alone, pregnant, but who didn't give up, who fought, who raised a beautiful, happy, healthy daughter. You're even stronger than I imagined, he said, his voice full of admiration. Sarah blinked. She didn't expect that. What? You're incredible, Sarah, he continued. You were 19 years old, alone, pregnant, and yet you chose to have Hannah. You chose to fight for her, to work, to sacrifice, to give her everything, without help, without anyone. That's not weakness, that's the strongest thing anyone can do. Sarah felt tears coming. She blinked quickly, trying to hold them back. I just did what any mother would do. No, Matthew shook his head. Many people would have given up, would have chosen the easier path. But you didn't. You chose her. And look at the result. He pointed to Hannah, who was laughing, pushing another child on the swing. She's incredible, happy, full of life. Because of you, only you. Sarah couldn't hold back. The tears fell. She wiped them with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, she said, laughing through her tears. I don't usually cry like this. You don't have to apologize. Matthew hesitated. Then, slowly, he placed his hand over hers on the bench. Sarah looked down at his hand covering hers, large, warm, safe. She didn't pull away. She let it stay. You're not alone anymore, Matthew said quietly. If you'll let me, I want to be here, for both of you, not as charity, not out of pity, but as someone who cares, someone who wants to be a part of this. Sarah looked at him, at those sincere eyes, and she saw it. She saw he was telling the truth, that he really cared. Why? She asked, her voice low. Why us? Why do you care so much? Matthew was quiet. He looked ahead, at Hannah playing. Because you made me feel alive again, he said. After 5 years of being dead inside, you reminded me what it feels like to feel joy, warmth, love, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to go back to that empty house, to all that emptiness. Sarah squeezed his hand. You won't lose it. We're here. They stayed like that, sitting, holding hands, watching Hannah play, and something between them changed, deepened. It wasn't just friendship anymore, it was something bigger, something that scared and warmed her at the same time. Half an hour later, Hannah ran to them, sweaty, red-cheeked, happy. I'm hungry, Matthew laughed. How about hot dogs? There's a cart over there. Yes, with lots of ketchup. They went to the cart, bought hot dogs, sat on a bench near the frozen lake. They ate. Hannah chattered non-stop, talking about the kids she met, about the game of tag, about everything. When she finished eating, she wiped her hands on a napkin. Then she looked at Matthew. Wait here, she said seriously. Why? It's a surprise. She took the small pink backpack she had brought, opened it, took out a folded piece of paper. Sarah saw it and smiled. She knew what it was. Hannah carefully unfolded the paper. It was a drawing, colorful, clearly made with care, not rushed. She held it out to Matthew. For you. Matthew took it and looked. The drawing showed 3 people, A tall one with dark hair, a medium one with long hair, and a small one with curly yellow hair. They were holding hands, smiling, and behind them a huge tree, green, filled with lights drawn with a yellow pencil, a Christmas tree. Underneath, in clumsy but legible letters, was written, "My family." Matthew froze, staring at the drawing, at the detail, at the care, at the three people together. "Hannah." His voice came out hoarse. "Now you have a family at Christmas too," Hannah said seriously. "Not just memories, a real family, us." Matthew felt a lump in his throat. His eyes filled with tears. He blinked, but it was no use. They fell. He held the paper with both hands, as if it were the most precious object in the world. "This is the best gift I've ever received," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Hannah smiled, then she hugged him. Matthew pulled her up, hugging her tightly, the drawing still in his hand. Sarah watched, and cried too, but they were tears of joy, of gratitude. They stayed there, the three of them, on the cold bench by the frozen lake, but feeling all the warmth in the world. The rest of the afternoon passed quickly. They walked more. Hannah threw stones onto the frozen lake. She tried to make a snowman, but there wasn't enough snow. She laughed. She ran. She lived. And Matthew and Sarah walked side by side, talking, laughing, connecting. When the sun began to set, they went back to the car. Hannah fell asleep in the back seat, tired, hugging Rosie. Matthew drove slowly. Sarah looked out the window, but after a few minutes she turned to him. "Matthew, yes. Thank you. For today. For everything. You don't have to thank me. I do. You've been so good to us, and I don't know how to repay you." Matthew glanced at her, quickly, because he was driving, but long enough for her to see his sincerity. "Just stay in my life, that's all I need." Sarah smiled and nodded. "We're not going anywhere." They arrived at Sarah's building. Matthew helped carry Hannah, who was still asleep. He climbed the stairs, gently placed her in bed. Sarah took off her shoes, covered her with the blanket. At the door, Sarah and Matthew stood, looking at each other. "Good night," she said quietly. "Good night." He hesitated, then he leaned in and kissed her forehead. Soft, quick, but meaningful. When he pulled away, Sarah was blushing but smiling. "See you soon," he said. "See you soon." Matthew went down the stairs, got in his car, and before starting the engine, he looked at the passenger seat. The drawing was there, folded carefully. He picked it up, looked at it again, at the three figures holding hands. "My family." He smiled. For the first time in 5 years, looking ahead, Matthew saw a future that wasn't empty, a future with colors, laughter, love, a future with Sarah and Hannah. And he knew, in that moment, that he would do anything to protect this, to keep this, to make this unlikely family work, because they weren't just friends, they weren't just company. They were what he had been searching for without knowing it. They were home. He started the car and drove back to the mansion, but this time the mansion didn't seem so empty, because now it had memories inside. Memories of laughter, of hugs, of belonging. And when he went inside, he went straight to his office, opened his desk drawer, and carefully he placed the drawing inside. Next to it, in an old picture frame, was the photo of the family he had lost, his wife, his daughter Lily, smiling. He looked at the photo, then at the drawing, and whispered, "I still love you. I always will. But I think you would want me to be happy again. And they make me happy." He closed the drawer and smiled. Life was giving him a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it, not this time. It was Tuesday, 11 at night. Sarah was lying in bed, trying to sleep, when she heard it. A soft sound coming from Hannah's room. A whimper. She sat up, alert. She heard it again. She got up quickly, went to her daughter's room. turned on the hallway light, letting just a sliver of light in. Hannah was in bed, tossing under the covers. Her face was flushed, sweaty. "Hannah," Sarah approached. "Honey, are you okay? Mommy?" Her voice came out weak. "I'm hot." Sarah touched her forehead and froze. It was burning up. "Oh my God," she whispered. She ran to the bathroom, grabbed the thermometer, came back, placed it on Hannah's forehead. She waited. The seconds felt like hours. The thermometer beeped. 103.1 degree. Sarah's heart raced. "It's okay, sweetie," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "You have a fever. I'm going to give you some medicine, okay?" She went to the kitchen cabinet, grabbed the fever reducer. Her hands were shaking. She measured the dose, went back to the room. "Take this." She put the spoon to Hannah's mouth. Hannah swallowed, making a face. "It's bitter." "I know, but it will help." Sarah grabbed a washcloth, wet it with cool water, placed it on Hannah's forehead. "Try to sleep, okay? The medicine will bring the fever down." Hannah closed her eyes. But she kept tossing and turning, uncomfortable, burning. Sarah stayed by the bed, watching, changing the washcloth every 5 minutes, waiting for the medicine to work. Half an hour passed. The fever didn't go down. If it hadn't gotten worse, it certainly hadn't gotten better. Sarah measured again. 103.5 degree. Panic began to rise in her chest. Hannah opened her eyes. They were glassy, feverish. "Mommy, I don't feel good." "I know, sweetie, I know." Sarah grabbed her phone, searched. "High fever in child. When to go to the hospital?" The results appeared: fever above 102.2 degree in a young child, lethargy. No response to medicine. It all applied. She needed to take Hannah to the hospital. But how? She didn't have a car. A taxi would take too long, and she was alone, completely alone. And then she thought of him, Matthew. She didn't want to bother him. It was almost midnight, but she had no one else, literally no one. With trembling hands, she dialed his number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Please pick up, please pick up," she whispered. On the 4th ring, he answered. His voice sleepy. "Hello?" "Matthew." Sarah's voice came out broken. "Matthew, I need help." He woke up instantly. She could hear it in his tone. "Sarah, what happened?" "It's Hannah. She has a really high fever, almost 104 degrees. The medicine isn't working. I need to take her to the hospital, but I don't have a car and I don't know what to do and I'm so scared." "Breathe." Matthew cut her off, his voice firm but gentle. "Breathe, Sarah. I'm on my way now. How long ago did you give her the medicine?" 40 minutes. "Okay, sometimes it takes an hour to kick in, but we'll take her to the hospital just to be sure." "I'm leaving now. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Can you hold on until then?" "I can," she said, her voice trembling. Thank you, Matthew." "Don't thank me. I'm on my way." He hung up. Sarah went back to the room. Hannah had closed her eyes again. Her breathing was rapid, her face red. "Matthew's coming," Sarah said, stroking her hair. "We're going to the hospital. They'll help you." Hannah didn't answer, just whimpered softly. Sarah felt the tears coming. She held them back. She had to be strong. For Hannah. 9 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Sarah ran to the door, opened it. Matthew was there, his hair messy, clothes thrown on hastily, but his eyes were alert and focused. "Where is she?" "In her room." He came inside, went straight there. Sarah showed him the way. Matthew entered the room, saw Hannah in bed, small, vulnerable, burning with fever. He knelt beside the bed, touched her forehead. "Hey, little one," he said softly. "Not feeling well?" Hannah opened her eyes. She saw him, and a small smile appeared. "Matthew, I'm here. I'm going to take you to the hospital, okay? They'll help you." He turned to Sarah. "Do you have a blanket? Let's wrap her up well. It's cold outside." Sarah grabbed a thick blanket. Matthew wrapped Hannah in it. Then he picked her up carefully, as if she were made of glass. Let's go, he said. They went downstairs. Sarah grabbed her purse, documents, the teddy bear Hannah loved. She locked the apartment. They got in the car, Sarah in the back seat, holding Hannah in her lap. Matthew drove, fast but carefully, through the empty streets of Boston, straight to the nearest emergency room. They arrived in 15 minutes. Matthew parked at the entrance, got out, picked Hannah up again. They ran inside. The reception area was nearly empty. A nurse looked up, saw Matthew carrying the child wrapped in a blanket. "She has a high fever," Matthew said urgently. "Almost 104 degrees, not responding to medicine." The nurse stood up immediately. "Come with me." She took them to a triage room. A young doctor came in seconds later. "What happened?" Sarah explained. "The fever, the medicine, the lack of response." The doctor took her temperature, looked at Hannah's throat, listened to her heart, asked questions. "We're going to admit her for a few hours," she said, "to monitor her, give her a stronger fever reducer, run some tests. It's likely a viral infection, but I want to be sure." Sarah nodded, relieved that they were doing something. They took Hannah to a small room, placed her on a gurney, hooked her up to machines, gave her medicine through an IV. Sarah stayed by her side, holding Hannah's little hand. Matthew stood behind her, a hand on her shoulder, giving silent support. The hours passed. Slowly, the fever began to break. 102 degrees, then 101.3 degrees. Hannah slept. Finally, peaceful. Sarah didn't leave her side, not for a second. Neither did Matthew. He brought her coffee, water, a sandwich from the vending machine that she barely touched. At 4 in the morning, her fever was at 100 degrees, almost normal. The doctor returned, looked at the test results. "It's a viral infection," she confirmed. "Nothing serious. The fever should be completely gone in the next few hours. She can go home in the morning. Just keep up with the fever reducer and lots of fluids." Sarah let out a huge sigh, relieved, exhausted, emotional. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick. "Thank you so much." The doctor smiled. "Yet she's going to be fine. You can rest now." She left, leaving them alone. Sarah collapsed into the chair beside the gurney. She covered her face with her hands and cried. All the fear, the tension, the panic came out in sobs. Matthew knelt beside her, placed a hand on her back. "Hey," he said softly. "It's okay. She's okay." "I know," Sarah said between sobs. "I know, but I was so scared. What if she had gotten worse? What if I couldn't get help? What if—" "But you did. You called. I came. We brought her here, and she's okay now." Sarah looked at him, her eyes red, her face wet. "Thank you for coming, for being here. I don't know what I would have done without you." Matthew held her face with both hands, gently. He looked into her eyes. "You will never be alone again," he said firmly. "Do you hear me? Never again. You have me now, always. For anything, day or night, it doesn't matter. I will be here." Sarah felt fresh tears fall, but they were different now, not of fear, of gratitude, of relief, of something deeper. "Matthew," he wiped her tears with his thumbs and smiled. "Get some rest, I'll watch her." Sarah nodded, leaned back in the chair, closed her eyes, and for the first time in hours, she relaxed. Matthew stayed awake, watching Hannah sleep, watching Sarah rest, protecting them both. And he felt complete, purposeful, needed. This was what he wanted. This was what he had been searching for without knowing it. At 6 in the morning, Hannah woke up. The fever was completely gone. She looked around, confused. "Where are we?" "In the hospital, sweetie," Sarah said, waking up instantly. "You were sick, remember?" Hannah thought, then nodded. "I remember being hot, really hot." "You had a fever, but it's gone now." "You're all better." Hannah saw Matthew. She smiled, weak but genuine. "Did you stay here all night?" "I did," he said. "I wasn't going to leave you alone." Thank you. You're welcome, little one. At 9 in the morning, they were discharged. Hannah was still weak, but better. The color had returned to her face. Her eyes were clear. Matthew drove them home. Helped Hannah up the stairs. Sarah opened the door. "I'll get the sofa ready for her," Sarah said, "so I can keep an eye on her." "I'll help." Together, they arranged the sofa, blankets, pillows, the TV on low. Hannah settled in, hugging Rosie. "Try to sleep a little more," Sarah said, kissing her forehead. "Okay, Mommy." Hannah closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep again. Sarah and Matthew went to the kitchen. Sarah made coffee, strong. They were both exhausted. They hadn't slept at all. They sat at the table, in silence at first, just drinking the coffee, processing the night. "I'll never forget what you did," Sarah said finally, coming over in the middle of the night, staying the whole time. Without question, without hesitation. "I told you, you're not alone anymore." Sarah looked at him, really looked, at this man who had come into their lives by chance, and who was now essential. "Why do you do this?" she asked quietly. "Why do you care about us so much?" Matthew was quiet, staring at his coffee cup. Then he sighed. "Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone here." "Of course." He took a deep breath. "I thought about starting a family once, a long time ago. Before my wife and daughter, I was engaged." Sarah blinked, surprised. "Engaged?" "Yeah, I was 25. I thought I had found the right person. We were planning a wedding, a house and kids, everything." He paused. His jaw tightened. "And then I found out she was cheating on me, with my best friend, for months." "Matthew." "I was destroyed," he continued, his voice low, "not by the affair itself, but by the lie, the deceit. I had trusted her completely, opened my heart, and it was used, discarded." Sarah placed her hand over his on the table. "I ended everything. I closed myself off. I told myself I would never trust like that again, never open myself up like that again. And then you met your wife. Years later, she was different, patient, kind. Slowly, she made me trust again, and we were happy, very happy, until the accident." He looked at Sarah, his eyes shining. "After I lost them, I went back to that same darkness, that same isolation. I swore I would never let anyone in again. It was safer alone. No risk, no pain. But," Matthew turned his hand over, lacing his fingers with hers, "but you made me believe again," he said firmly. You and Hannah. You came into my life without warning, without asking for permission. And you broke down every wall I had built." Sarah's heart raced. "Matthew, I don't want to be alone anymore, Sarah," he continued. "I don't want to live in that empty mansion anymore. I don't want to eat dinner alone anymore. I don't want to wake up without a purpose. I want to be with you. I want to be a part of this unlikely family that we've formed." Sarah was crying again, but they were good tears. "You already are a part of it," she said, her voice thick. "You have been for a while." Matthew smiled. He lifted her hand and kissed it, softly, reverently. "Then let me keep being a part of it. Let me be here, for you, always." "Always," Sarah repeated. They stayed like that, hands intertwined on the table, looking at each other, a silent promise passing between them. Something had changed that night, something definitive. They were no longer just friends. They were no longer just acquaintances who helped each other out. They were family, a real chosen family, built on trust, care, and love. And they both knew that from now on, there was no going back. They were in this together, forever. From the living room, Hannah mumbled something in her sleep. They both stood up, went to check on her. She was fine, just adjusting on the pillow. Rosie had fallen on the floor. Matthew picked her up and placed her back in Hannah's arms. Hannah smiled in her sleep, hugged the doll. Sarah and Matthew stood there, watching, protecting. She's going to be okay, Matthew whispered. She is, Sarah agreed, because she has you now. She has us. Matthew put his arm around Sarah's shoulders. She leaned her head against his, and they stood like that, watching Hannah sleep, watching the sun stream through the window, illuminating the small apartment, turning it into a home. 2 weeks after Hannah's scare, Matthew was back at the cafe. It had become a routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he would show up in the late afternoon, order a cappuccino, sit at the corner table, and wait for Sarah to finish her shift. Sometimes Hannah was there, sometimes not. But always, when Sarah was done, they would leave together. For dinner, for a walk, to talk. It was becoming part of their lives. Natural, expected, necessary. That Thursday, Matthew arrived at 5. The cafe was nearly empty, end of the day. Sarah was wiping down tables. The last customer had left 10 minutes ago. "Hi," he said, stopping near the counter. Sarah looked up, smiled automatically. "Hi, you're early today. Left work early. Where's Hannah?" "At the neighbor's. Mrs. Rosa watches her twice a week when I work late." "Oh." Silence. Matthew seemed nervous, fidgeting with his pockets, looking around, avoiding direct eye contact with her. Sarah noticed. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah," he said quickly. But it wasn't convincing. Sarah dropped the cloth on the table, approached him. "Matthew, what's wrong?" He took a deep breath, looked at her, and Sarah saw it. She saw something in his eyes, something intense, determined, but also scared. "I need to talk to you," he said. "Seriously, it's important." Sarah's heart sped up. She didn't know why, but something in his voice. "Okay, let me just close up here. 2 minutes." She hurried to the back, turned off the coffee machine, grabbed her bag, turned off the lights, locked the door. When she came back, Matthew was standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, looking at the darkening sky. "Ready," she said. "What did you want to talk about?" Matthew looked at her, hesitated, then pointed to the bench in front of the cafe. "Sit with me." "Of course." They sat. The air was cold. Sarah pulled her coat tighter. Matthew was silent for a moment, and then he began, "Sarah, it's been almost 2 months since we met." She nodded. 2 months. It felt like a lifetime. "And at the same time, it felt like yesterday. And in these 2 months, you've completely changed my life," he continued. "Before you, I just existed. I'd wake up, work, come home, sleep, repeat. There was no purpose, no joy, nothing." Sarah listened, quiet. "But then I met Hannah, and you, and suddenly, everything changed. Suddenly I had a reason to wake up, to smile, to live. You reminded me what it's like to have a family, what it's like to have love." He paused, turned completely towards her on the bench. "And I realized something. I realized I don't want to live without this anymore. Without you." Sarah's heart was pounding now. "Matthew, I want to be with you every day," he said firmly. "Not just sometimes, not just when we make plans. Every day. To wake up and see Hannah, to have breakfast together, to have dinner together, to read her stories every night, to be there when she needs me, when you need me." Sarah felt the tears coming. "But I want to try to be a family," Matthew continued, his voice thick with emotion now. "A real one. Not just friends, not just visits. A family. Me, UT, and Hannah. Living together. Being together. Being a unit." Sarah covered her mouth with her hand. The tears fell. "I know it's fast," he said quickly. "I know we barely know each other. But I also know what I feel. And I know I'm not going to feel this again with anyone else. And you are everything." "Matthew," Sarah finally managed to say, "are you sure? Because this is big. It's responsibility. It's commitment. It's Hannah. She'll get attached. I'll get attached. And if you change your mind later—" "I won't change my mind," he cut her off, taking her hands. "I won't, Sarah. I've already thought about all of this. I know what I'm asking. I know what it means, and I want it, with all my heart. I want to be the father Hannah never had. I want to be the partner you deserve. I want to be a family." Sarah sobbed. She couldn't hold it back. Are you absolutely sure? Absolutely. She looked at him, at those sincere eyes, and she saw it. There was no doubt there, no fear, only certainty, only love. Then yes, she said, laughing through her tears. Yes, Matthew. We want that too. I want that. Hannah wants that. We want to be your family. Matthew smiled, huge. And then he pulled her into a hug, tight, squeezing, as if he wanted to absorb her. Thank you, he whispered in her ear. Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you, she whispered back, for choosing us. They stayed like that, embracing on the cold bench in front of the cafe. The world passed around them, but they saw nothing but each other. When they pulled apart, Matthew wiped her tears with his thumbs. Let's go get Hannah. I want to tell her. Sarah laughed. She's going to freak out. I know. They walked to her building, went up to Mrs. Rosa's apartment. Sarah knocked on the door. The neighbor opened it. An elderly woman with grey hair and a kind smile. Sarah, Matthew, come in. They entered. Hannah was sitting on the sofa watching TV. When she saw them, she jumped up. Mommy, Matthew. She ran and hugged them both. Hi, sweetie, Sarah said, kissing the top of her head. Everything okay? Were you a good girl? Very. Mrs. Rosa made cookies. I helped. She certainly did, the neighbor confirmed, laughing. A great little helper. Sarah said her thanks, grabbed Hannah's things, and the three of them went downstairs. In their apartment, Sarah made hot chocolate. Hannah sat at the kitchen table, swinging her legs, talking non-stop about the cookies and a cartoon she had seen. Matthew and Sarah exchanged glances, nervous and excited. Hannah, Matthew said finally, we need to talk to you about something. Hannah stopped talking, looked at him, then at her mom, suddenly serious. What is it? Is someone sick? No, Sarah laughed. No one's sick. It's something good. Very good, Matthew added. He knelt down to her level. Hannah, do you remember when you drew that picture? With the three of us together. I remember, with the Christmas tree. That's right. And you wrote my family underneath. I did, because you are my family, Matthew smiled. What if we could be a family for real, not just in drawings, but in real life? Hannah frowned. What do you mean? Living together, Matthew explained. You, your mom, and me. In my house, every day waking up together, having dinner together. Being a complete family. Hannah's eyes widened. Slowly, processing. We would live in your mansion. You would, if you want to. With the giant tree? With the giant tree. Hannah looked at her mother. Mommy, is it true? Sarah nodded, smiling. It's true, sweetie. If you want to. We're going to live with Matthew. Be a real family. Hannah was quiet for a second, 2, 3, and then she screamed, Yes, yes, I want to. She jumped out of her chair, hugged Matthew, then Sarah, then both of them together. We're going to be a real family, she yelled, jumping up and down. A family! With a dad and a mum and a daughter. Sarah and Matthew laughed, hugged her back, the three of them together. A family. Finally. Now we can be a real family, Hannah said, holding both of their hands. Forever. Forever, Matthew repeated, looking at Sarah over Hannah's head. Forever, Sarah confirmed. And there, in that small apartment, with hot chocolate cooling on the table, a family was born. Not by blood, not by obligation, but by choice, by love, by mutual need. An imperfect family, but a real one. 2 weeks later, the move happened. There wasn't much to take. Sarah and Hannah had few pieces of furniture, few clothes, few things, but Matthew didn't care. He said they would buy everything they needed. Together, he rented a van. On Saturday morning, they started packing. Boxes of clothes, Hannah's toys, some books, kitchen utensils, photos, memories. Matthew helped carry everything. He went up and down the stairs, sweaty but smiling, happy to be doing it, to be bringing them to his home, to their home. Hannah was ecstatic. She couldn't stop running around, asking questions. Which room will be mine? Can I bring all my toys? Will Rosie have a bed too? Sarah answered patiently. But she was nervous, not about Matthew, but about the move itself. She had lived in that apartment for 5 years, since before Hannah was born. It was small. It was old, but it was hers. And now she was leaving it, to go live in a mansion. With a man she had known for 2 months. It was crazy, but it was the right kind of crazy. By the afternoon, everything was in the van. Matthew locked the apartment door for the last time. Sarah looked back at the narrow hallway, the peeling walls, the creaking stairs. "It's going to be okay," Matthew said, holding her hand. "I know." And they left. They arrived at the mansion in the late afternoon. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. The Christmas lights were still on in the trees, even though it was already January. Hannah jumped out of the van. "Oh, it's so big." "It's yours now," Matthew said, smiling. They started to unload. Matthew had set aside a room for Hannah, big, with a huge window, a walk-in closet, her own bathroom. "You can decorate it however you want," he said. "Choose the colors, the furniture, everything." Hannah's eyes sparkled. "Can I paint it pink?" "You can paint it any color you want. And have a princess bed, if you want one." Hannah squealed with joy. Sarah's room was down the same hall, next to Hannah's. Matthew hadn't presumed. He didn't put her in his room. He gave her space, time. It was large, beautiful, with a private bathroom, a view of the garden, everything perfect. "Do you like it?" he asked nervously. Sarah looked around and smiled. "It's perfect." They spent the rest of the day unpacking, clothes in the closets, toys in Hannah's room, personal items in their places. At night, they had dinner in the kitchen, pizza that Matthew had ordered. Hannah talked non-stop about her new room, about the house, about everything. After dinner, Sarah gave her a bath, put on her pajamas, took her to the new room. Hannah looked around. The bed was temporary, the decor, basic, but it was hers. "It's strange," she said quietly. "Different from my old little room." "I know, sweetie, but we'll get used to it." "You think so?" "I'm sure of it." Matthew appeared at the door. With a book in his hand. "Can I read to you? The first night in the new house deserves a story." Hannah smiled. "You can." He sat on the edge of the bed, opened the book, and began to read, his voice soft, warm. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, watching, and she felt it. She felt she had made the right choice. When Hannah fell asleep, Matthew and Sarah left the room. Slowly, they closed the door carefully. In the hallway, they stood there, looking at each other. "First night," Matthew said. "First night," Sarah repeated. "How are you feeling?" "Scared, excited, nervous, happy all at once." He smiled. "Me too." Sarah took a step, hugged him. Matthew hugged back. "Strong, safe. We're going to make this work," she whispered. "We are," he agreed. "Together." They stood there, in the hallway of the mansion that was now a home, embracing a new family, trying, learning. The first few weeks were strange. Sarah would wake up and not know where she was. The ceiling was different. The light came in differently. The sounds were different. Hannah found it strange too. She would wake up at night, calling for her mother, confused about where she was. And Matthew, used to silence, now woke up to noise, footsteps, voices, music, life. But slowly they adjusted. Sarah learned to use the enormous kitchen. She started cooking more. Matthew would come home from work to a home-cooked meal waiting for him. Hannah explored every corner of the house. She discovered the attic, the basement, the backyard. She turned everything into a playground. And Matthew started living again. He woke up excited. He worked, but he always came home early, to have dinner with them, to help Hannah with her homework, to talk to Sarah about her day. The empty hallways filled with laughter, with conversations, with arguments about dinner, with Hannah chasing Matthew, playing tag, The living room, once silent, now had music, cartoons, laughter. The kitchen, once too clean, was now messy. Flour on the counter, dishes in the sink, the smell of cake in the oven. The house was alive. A month after the move, Sarah was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Hannah was drawing at the island. Matthew had just gotten home from work. He walked in, put down his briefcase, and stopped. He looked around, at the organized mess, at the happy noise, at Sarah humming while she cooked. At Hannah laughing, showing him a drawing, and he smiled. "What is it?" Sarah asked, noticing. "Nothing," he said. "It's just the house became a home." Sarah smiled back. It did, and it was true. That cold, empty, lifeless mansion had been transformed, not by the walls, not by the furniture, not by the decor, but by the people inside it, by the laughter, by the love, by life. It was a home. Finally. The months passed, slowly at first, then faster and faster, as it always happens when you're happy. The routine settled in naturally. Matthew would wake up at 7, come downstairs. Sarah would already be in the kitchen making coffee. The smell filled the house. Bacon, eggs, toast. They would have breakfast together, talk about the day ahead, plans, appointments, nothing major, but it was everything. At 8, Hannah would come down, hair messy, still sleepy, Rosie under her arm. She'd eat cereal, tell them some crazy dream she'd had. Matthew listened to every word, asked questions, laughed at the right moments. Sarah would watch and catch herself smiling. This was family. This was what she had always wanted for Hannah. At 8:30, Matthew would take Hannah to school, every day. It had become his thing. He insisted. "It's on my way to work," he'd said, "and I want to do it." And at 3 in the afternoon, when school let out, he was there, waiting at the gate. Hannah would come running out, yelling, "Dad," without a second thought. Yes, Dad. She had started calling him that a couple of months ago. Naturally, without anyone suggesting it. It just happened. Matthew almost cried the first time, but he held it in, just hugged her tighter and said, "Hi, sweetie." At night, the three of them had dinner together. Always. No matter how tired Matthew was, no matter how many meetings Sarah had at the cafe, they ate together. After dinner, Matthew helped Hannah with her homework. Math, English, science. He had infinite patience. He would explain 10 times if needed. He never got annoyed. Sarah would do the dishes and listen to Matthew and Hannah laughing in the living room. And she would feel light. For the first time in years, she didn't have to do everything alone. She didn't have to carry everything on her shoulders. Someone was there, sharing, helping, caring. One night, 3 months after the move, Sarah was in the kitchen, putting away clean dishes. Matthew came in. Hannah had already gone to bed. "You seem different," he said. Sarah looked at him. "Different how?" "Lighter, more happy." She smiled, closed the cabinet, turned to face him fully. "I am happy for the first time in a long time." "Why?" "Because I'm not alone," she said simply. "I spent 5 years fighting alone, waking up early, working double shifts, taking care of everything, the bills, Hannah, the house. Everything always fell on my shoulders." Matthew listened, quiet, "and I did it because I had to, but it was exhausting, lonely, scary. Every day I woke up afraid of not being enough, of failing her." "Sarah, but now," she continued, her eyes shining, "now I wake up and you're here, and I don't have to do everything alone. You help, you care. And for the first time I can breathe." Matthew came closer, took her hands. "You will never have to fight alone again, I promise." "I know," she whispered, "and that changes everything." He pulled her into a hug, and they stood there, in the quiet kitchen, just feeling each other's presence, a partnership, a team, a family. The months continued to pass. September, October, November. And then, suddenly, it was December again. 1 year, 1 full year since that day in the toy store, and so much had changed. Matthew woke up on the morning of December 24th, Christmas Eve. Again, but it was different. Everything was different. He went downstairs. The kitchen was a mess. Sarah was trying to make pancakes. Hannah was helping, which meant more flour on the floor than in the bowl. "Good morning," said Matthew. "Dad?" Hannah ran and hugged him. "We're making Christmas pancakes." Matthew poured some coffee, sat down, and watched the two of them work, laughing, making a mess, living. And he felt grateful. So grateful. In the afternoon, he went out, alone. For 2 hours, he didn't say where he was going. When he came back, the car was full, boxes, bags, wrapped, colorful. "What is all this?" Sarah asked, curious. "Presents," he said, smiling mysteriously. "Lots of presents." He spent the entire afternoon under the tree, organizing, stacking, creating a mountain of colorful boxes. Hannah tried to peek 1,000 times, but Matthew always covered them. "You can't see yet, only tomorrow." As evening fell, the house was perfect. The Christmas lights glowed. The fireplace crackled. The huge tree dominated the room, now surrounded by gifts. So many gifts. Red, green, gold, silver, with huge bows. Matthew looked at it and remembered. He remembered last year, the beautiful tree, but empty underneath. Not a single present, just loneliness. And now it was complete. Sarah prepared the feast. Turkey, potatoes, vegetables, apple pie. Matthew helped. Hannah was in charge of decorating the table. She put out red napkins, candles, a reindeer centerpiece. "It's beautiful," Sarah said, admiring it. "I did it," Hannah said proudly. At 7, they sat down to dinner. The table was full, with food, with light, with love. They ate, they talked, they laughed. Hannah told jokes that didn't make sense. Matthew pretended to find them funny. Sarah laughed for real. In the middle of dinner, Matthew stopped, put his fork down on his plate, picked up his wine glass. "May I make a toast?" Sarah and Hannah looked at him. "Of course," Sarah said. Matthew stood up, held his glass, looked at them, and took a deep breath. "1 year ago," he began, his voice emotional. "I was alone, completely alone. I had everything. A big house, money, success, but I had nothing that mattered. I had no love, no family, no purpose." Sarah listened, her eyes already shining. "And then in a toy store on Christmas Eve, I saw a little girl, a beautiful girl who wanted a doll, and a brave mother who was doing the impossible for her daughter, and something inside me broke and changed." Hannah smiled, remembering. "I spent so many years alone," Matthew continued, his voice thick. "So many years thinking I would never feel joy again, love, belonging. But you gave me all of that back. You gave me a reason to wake up, to smile, to live." The tears began to fall, from him, from Sarah. Even Hannah was quiet, serious, listening. "And I realized something," Matthew said, raising his glass. "Now I know the greatest gift doesn't cost money. It doesn't come wrapped. It doesn't have a bow. The greatest gift is you. It's waking up every day and seeing you here. It's hearing laughter in this house. It's having a family again." He looked at them with so much love that Sarah couldn't hold it back. "So I toast to you, to us, to this unlikely family that we've formed. Thank you for saving me, for giving me a second chance, for showing me that there's still magic in the world." Sarah stood up, walked to him, and hugged him tightly, crying. "Thank you," she whispered, "for choosing us, for loving us, for staying." Hannah jumped from her chair, ran over, hugged them both around the waist. "I love you," she said, her voice muffled. So much." "We love you too," Matthew and Sarah said together. They stayed like that, the three of them embracing in the dining room, the food growing cold on the table. But it didn't matter. What mattered was this moment, this love, this family. After dinner, they went to the living room. Hannah ran ahead, stopped in front of the tree, and yelled, "Look, Mommy, now Christmas is complete." Sarah approached, looked at the tree surrounded by colorful presents, each with a card, each chosen with care. She covered her mouth. "Matthew," she began. "I wanted to make up for it," he said, a bit sheepishly. "All the Christmases Hannah didn't have. All the presents you couldn't give her." "It's perfect," Sarah cut him off, crying again. "It's absolutely perfect." Hannah was jumping up and down. "Can I open one? Can I open one now? Please." Matthew laughed. "You can open one, just one. The rest are for tomorrow." Hannah chose a medium-sized box wrapped in pink paper with a gold bow. She ripped the paper. Inside was a complete painting kit, paints, brushes, canvases. "It's for you to draw," Matthew said, "to make your real works of art." Hannah hugged the box. "It's the best present in the world." They spent the rest of the evening in the living room, looking at the tree, drinking hot chocolate. Hannah eventually fell asleep on the sofa, hugging Rosie and her painting kit. Matthew picked her up, carefully, carried her to her room. Sarah followed him. Together, they took off her shoes, covered her up, kissed her forehead. "Good night, my daughter," Matthew whispered. In the hallway, they stood there, looking at each other. "Thank you," Sarah said. "For everything, for the presents, for the love, for this life." "You don't have to thank me. It's what I want to do. It's where I want to be." Sarah stepped closer. For the first time, she was the one who closed the distance. She was the one who leaned in and kissed him, soft, long, filled with promise, with future, with love. When they parted, they were both smiling. "Merry Christmas, Matthew," she whispered. "Merry Christmas, Sarah." They went downstairs together, hand in hand, and sat in front of the fireplace, just watching the fire, the lights on the tree twinkling. "Look how far we've come," Sarah said quietly. "A year ago, I didn't even know you, and now you're my family. My home." "You are my home too," Matthew said. "My family, my everything." They stayed there, late into the night, talking, planning, dreaming. And when they finally went to sleep, they both knew. They knew this was permanent. It wasn't temporary, it wasn't a test. It was real, it was family, it was love. 3 lives once marked by loneliness had found each other. By chance, by fate, by necessity. And together, they had built something beautiful, something strong, something true, a home, a family, a future. And the next morning, when Hannah would wake up and run down the stairs to open her presents, when the 3 of them would sit on the floor surrounded by torn paper and bows, when they would laugh and play and live,